All right, thank you all. Let me move on to another question from the floor, if I might. And Mr. Moore, I think we'll start with you this time, if you don't mind. How would you plan to integrate downtown projects into the existing historic character of the Rose Hill neighborhood? And I guess I should mention here that somebody very smart once said, all politics is local. And so here we are in this particular neighborhood. How would you integrate downtown projects into the historical character of the Rose Hill neighborhood in which we're now sitting?
Well, the first thing you have to do is get the community's input. You know, I don't want to force something on you that you don't want. I love the idea of the Big 4 ramp coming off of the bridge. I think that could be gorgeous, but I don't want to destroy the integrity of the history of what we have down here. You know, we're talking about doing some major renovations. We are pushing people out of their homes to build a canal, to build a convention center. You know, I'm not crazy about the idea of a convention center. I'm not so sure that's a positive thing for us. I don't know. Are those dollars going to be guaranteed? I think it's a big risk. I'm not crazy about that idea. I love Place Square Park as it sits right now. I don't want to move Place Square Park to Bissing Park. I don't want to tear down a bunch of trees when people don't even know what's going on next to them, and they all of a sudden wake up the next day and 15 acres are destroyed for a park because one person decided to move the baseball fields in there. Place Square Park, you know, spend a little money down there, fix it up. You've got a beautiful asset to the community. If you want to bring in younger people into the area, hey, have a nice ballpark down there. It'll do it. But you know, let's always keep in mind the input from the community. Let's get the responses before we just go through something, and you know, whatever project seems to be the idea of the month, we gotta get the community's input first before we go in there with the bulldozer and start tearing things down.
Thank you, Mr. Moore. Mr. Ways, the question was integrating downtown projects into the existing historical character of this Rose Hill neighborhood.
That's what we need to do. I believe it is in the city master plan. If it's not, it should be. Any development that goes on in our downtown area to make sure it looks historic. Just like what we did with the buildings that were rebuilt there on Spring Street with the fire. As you go down there, a lot of people probably wouldn't even know that those were new buildings. It fits into the whole downtown. And if something gets redone, which I hope it does, there on the block between Spring and Pearl, it needs to make sure that it fits into our historic downtown neighborhood. Say like for the quadrangle. And there we were working with the quadrangle, and there was Family Affairs, I believe it was, the liquor store that actually moved there by the railroad tracks. We made sure that their design of the building looked like the quadrangle. So our plan was that any buildings that were built along there, they would take on that characteristic. So I would like to see that actually put in place.
Ms. Perkins.
I think the plan that you're referring to, Rob, is the Historic District Ordinance, and we have a strong Historic District Ordinance in this community, and we have a Historic District Board, and I think where you start is you enforce it. There have been too many exceptions, in my opinion, to that Historic District Ordinance, and too many things allowed to be done. The ordinance was written for good reason, and it was there for protection. It's interesting that you mentioned the liquor store, because I donated those windows to the liquor store, the ones out front that looks just like the quadrangle. When they were tearing down parts of the quadrangle that burned, I was able to acquire some of those. I still got a bunch in my backyard if anybody wants it. But I figured, you know, they could be used at some time in building back that area. I live and breathe historic preservation. I live in a home that's 111 years old. I think it's very important, and I'm glad that question was asked, very important that any project that goes on in this community, in Rose Hill community, it be looked at very closely and that ordinance lay right next to it because it is our protection. Just enforce it.
Mr. Mayor?
Well, I believe in historic preservation because we bought the quadrangle when I was mayor. We wanted to move City Hall there, but the city council didn't want us to do that because they passed a resolution not allowing that to happen in my administration. I think it's important that we protect our history. There's one house over here that's in the area where the Big Four Bridge is going to come down, and it's going to be safe because we think it's important. It's, I think, 1930 vintage, and we've worked with Greg Sekula and Historic Preservation to make sure what we've done works. We had the fastest revitalization of a main street in the history of the state of Indiana. And the president of Main Street in Indiana came down and told me that. We worked very hard. We bought buildings downtown to save them and get them renovated and put them in private developers' hands to rework them so that we could keep the buildings. We worked with Mr. Schimpf to help him with his museum. We've tried to work with everybody to do positive things in Jeffersonville with our historic preservation. Sometimes it seems a little bit tough, but in the long run, our history is how we got here. And what we're trying to do is make Jeff a better place. And all along the canal, you're going to see the history of Jeffersonville, and the buildings along it are going to show the same flavor as downtown Jeff, because that's what made Jeff what it is, and we need not get away from that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Wissing, are you okay over there?
Yeah, I'm just choking a little bit. I've got some allergies going on.
Okay.
It's the Ohio River, I guess.
Must be it. Progress versus historic character.
Of course, everybody said about everything that should be said about that ahead of me here, so I don't want to retrace any steps, but I firmly believe in the works of, for instance, Keith Staten. I know he's very well known downtown, and Keith's kind of been one of the ones who's led that charge to be able to keep downtown Jeffersonville historic. And I think that you should, one of the things I participated in was I try to go to any training I can go to or learn anything I can, and they had the canal meetings up at the Canal Center, and I thought it was pretty awesome how they allowed public input up there on some things that they're going to try to do when they build the canal. And I think public input should be for any kind of changes in downtown. It's really pretty much a no-brainer.
All right, thank you very much. Some of these questions which I have here are are ones that I think should be addressed, not necessarily as political candidates questions, but to people in the city administration who can answer that. But let me sort of generalize from one of these.